Welcome to Sports Business Unplugged, where the real game happens off the field. No fluff, no filters, just raw, uncut stories from the pros shaping the industry. Their journeys, their challenges, their passion, straight from the source. Let's talk sports business.
It was something as stupid as a trash can. So I'm walking across the gym. I can see the trash can's full. There's so many times where I've walked past that. You know, it's just like, hey, that's the end of the night checklist. And that's not my responsibility. Not that that's what, I don't take that approach, but that's what goes on in your head, you know? And this one time it was after, going through this reading, I was like, screw it. I'm freaking take it out. So I start pulling this bag of trash out, and one of our coaches sprints across the gym. He's like, I got it. I'm like, dude, nobody's in trouble. Like, I got it. You're doing your thing. I can do mine. And that, again, just we talk about culture that you create from coaches to athletes, but the culture that you create within the organization.
What's up, guys? This is Sports Business Unplugged, the podcast where we talk about everything sports business. And today's guest is Tyler Skovron, owner of ZL Performance, a leading posture and movement specialist based in Grapevine, Texas. He's worked with over 130 baseball players, including multiple MLB All-Stars and World Series MVPs. He helps them move better, play longer, and eliminate pain through posture-focused training. As an entrepreneur and performance coach, Tyler is changing the way athletes train, and his story is one every sports business fan needs to hear. So let's just get right into it. Tyler, how are you doing today?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much. So you're known as the posture guy. How did you get that name?
That's going to be up to a couple of athletes fighting for that one. But it's just kind of one of those things that just started calling me that. It originally started out as the guy, and then that just seemed a little bit too conceited. Yeah. And I was definitely not going to use that socially. So posture guy became it, and then it stuck.
Yeah. What couple of athletes were the ones that?
So we got a handful of guys on the Twins that they'll make the claim. Griffin Jacks is definitely one that he'll make the claim. He called me posture guy first. Key Brian Hayes is right up there with him being the first one. So I don't know. It's up for grabs.
Okay. And you, before you even got into posture, you were an athlete.
I was.
You started playing college golf. So was there a experience or a mentor early that kind of sparked your passion for the posture movement? Or how does someone get into posture?
Yeah, it kind of fell into my laps. I knew I wanted to be in the world of physical therapy or just movement in general to eliminate pain, improve functional capacities and just movement overall to ultimately prevent injuries. Yes. And that kind of was sparked from a young age for me because of my own injuries and kind of my own journey through sports. Funniest part of like the whole thing where I'm at now with baseball is I've never played baseball in my life. So I grew up playing lacrosse.
Okay.
And so it's like the nemesis of baseball, where I grew up in Maryland, baseball players and lacrosse players, they hate each other. Yeah. Obviously lacrosse isn't as big here in Texas. So the rivalry might not be the same, but in Maryland it's pretty big. And so to land in baseball ultimately is my career. It's interesting. Yeah. So, but I guess in high school, a month before my junior year of lacrosse, starting to get college attention and multiple Division I schools and things like that, I tore my ACL a month before my junior year or junior season. Yeah. First game back 6 months later, I tore my other ACL. And then while I was rehabbing my second ACL tear in a PT session, I retore my first knee. And I had 4 knee surgeries in my junior year of high school. Came back and actually still played my senior year. Took a year off, which I guess now is referred to as like a gap year. But this was back in 2007, so before gap year was even a thing. Took a year off and trained, and then came back at the JUCO level and was at a nationally ranked JUCO. And then I tore my hamstring, and I was like, okay, I give. But I guess it was in that year off of training, I mean, I had obviously fallen in love with the therapy side of things. There was the guy that I trained under. I actually went and started working for him. My playing career was done. His name is Troy Jones. He's I think he's down in Florida now.
Yeah.
But he works with a bunch of NFL guys.
Okay.
His specialty has always been running mechanics and sprinting. But Troy I started working under him at TZ Sports in Eldersburg, Maryland. And I mean, shoot, we had like Tavon Austin, right? He came through when he was in Dunbar High School. The Fuller brothers, Corey and Kyle and Kendall, even.
Yep.
To see those guys in the NFL now, it's like, I think Kendall was in middle school, when I was doing this. But I was working under Troy, and just in conversation one day, getting into my journey, I was like, oh yeah, I'm done. And Troy was like, you're not done. Let me train you. And I remember the first day walking in, I came in with my, dual ACL braces, and Troy's like, take those things off. Like, we're going to teach your body how to not rely on something like that. And that was really kind of the spark, not only to extend my playing career for one more year or get me back to a collegiate competitive level, but that was just a different side of things. That was the first time I had seen an approach outside of a textbook. Yeah. And that was kind of really the spark working under Troy.
So you worked under Troy. He trained you, and you also helped him train others.
I did. Yep.
Yeah. And what kind of things were you doing, like at the beginning? How do you learn how to train someone?
I mean, it's a lot of it is, for me at least. I can't speak for Troy, but it was trial and error.
Yeah.
I mean, you can have a base anatomical knowledge and understanding, all of these things that like school will give you, but then figuring out what works for each individual mover. If you and I both walk into a therapy clinic with back pain, because of insurance regulations, for the most part, we're going to get the same kind of therapy protocol.
Okay.
And, Troy was one of the first times where I've seen something different. And again, this is almost 20 years ago.
Yep.
And so the therapy world has come a long way too. But that was the first time I'd kind of seen, like, evaluate the mover on his own.
Yeah.
No two movers are the same. No two bodies are the same.
Yeah.
We all might have the same pieces, but my external rotation of my hips is going to be completely different than yours. Yeah. And yes, a textbook tells us we should have a ballpark range of motion that is healthy. However, it doesn't necessarily mean that we all have to be there to perform optimally.
Okay.
And so that was kind of the introduction to maybe just a different lens of viewing movement, and then taking that into, all right, how do you take this mover and optimize what he has in the tank to make it safe, and then also, create high output.
Yeah, that makes sense. And some things that would separate a great performance specialist and trainer from, a clinic is like what you mentioned, like personalization and individualization. Those things kind of make you stand out. So not, two people don't get the same one treatment, even if they have the same back pain, like you said. That makes sense, because not everybody's the same.
Right. They respond differently to exercise. So
yeah.
When I go into a therapy session now, like, and I've been doing it long enough where I kind of have general protocols.
Yeah.
I can create a program. I have an online an online store, right, under my Instagram page, where you can go get arm care routines and upper body mobility, lower body mobility. Yeah. So I have a group of performance routines, and then I have a group of pain routines, where if you had back pain, you could go grab a 6-week program offline. And so I still have general protocols, which are really, really good. But when it comes to, getting the best, the best is going to be on FaceTime or in person. You got to get the eyes. You got to get, I don't go into those sessions with a protocol. I might have a guess. I might evaluate movement, what I see in front of me, and then it's like, all right, I want to change this. So let me try this exercise, and then reevaluate the movement immediately after. Like, the body is constantly responding to stimulus. It's going to give you that feedback. And so I don't just go into a session and say, all right, this is the road we're going to go. I can't write a routine before I go into a therapy session. Yeah. It's I understand their pain. I evaluate the movement. All right, let's try exercise 1 and 2, and then reevaluate. And that might send me this way, and it might send me that way. You know, so that kind of keeps you engaged too from a therapy standpoint. Like
so
each session is its own puzzle piece of figuring out what goes together.
So there's definitely been times where you know you gave them something and you got it right on the first try.
For sure.
And there's been times probably where it's taken more than a couple tries.
Absolutely. I mean, sometimes you're like, all right, I got a good idea here, but for lack of better words, let's throw a dart at the wall and see what sticks.
Can you give an example of a time where, you know, it just kind of took longer?
Yeah, usually it depends on what they're dealing with pain-wise. You know, so I had an athlete who I actually had met at a wedding. So I was at another athlete's wedding. Hey, this guy's in pain. Want you to meet this guy. We start jumping on FaceTime together, and everything that I tried with him would just like, all right, this one felt good. I'm like, okay, so let's branch off of that and try this. Boom, that would light him up. And so it's like, okay, well, let's go back. And we found, I remember our first session together, we found like a core 3 exercises that were really good, really made him feel good. And then when I would try that 4th one on branch A, light him up, and we'd have to go back and restart the first 3 just to get back to that state of the body's not in a fight or flight. Kind of getting more parasympathetic, and you know, where the body can actually receive versus just shutting down and blocking off everything. And then we try like, okay, let's try branch B. Boom, that would light him up. We restart the first 3, and then I honestly think in that first session, he might have walked away with 4 exercises, but they were 4 exercises that at least we had to go to a place to start from. So it really just depends on the situation, but
Is Tommy John's just like the overlying most common injury?
No, I mean, it's definitely on the rise in throwers. But I mean,
is there a recurring injury that you see like throughout like all athletes of all sports, like just the most common, or is it just pretty much even?
Yeah, it just depends. I mean, the majority of the sports that I'm working with now, or the athletes I'm working with now, is baseball.
Okay,
it's probably 90% baseball. I mean, I've had a run-in with a football player a couple of months ago. That was pretty interesting because it's like, all right, never been in that sport before, but completely different athlete. Completely different mover.
Mechanics totally different.
Yeah, I mean, it's well, their sports are different. Right. The demands of the sports are different. And then, you know, I before baseball was golf, and so I worked with golfers there, and still work with a few golfers now. That's a little bit more similar to baseball, but it's not really a massive underlying injury. But if anything, it comes down to, and this is kind of where the foundation of posture exists, is just movement in general. As a human being, we're meant to be on our feet. We're meant to, like, our locomotion is everything. And our society that we live in, even as athletes, even as high performers, it's sedentary. You know, I mean, we used to walk everywhere. We used to have manual labor jobs, you know.
We're sitting right now.
And now it's chairs, and it's like we drive in a car everywhere we go. When we get home from work, what are we doing? We're on the couch, you know. Bed. Sure, you might have an hour and a half, 2 hour workout, keep that healthy lifestyle, you know. But for the most part, the majority of Americans, we sit. And so, you know, that in itself takes away our movement capacity, and our body, sitting is a stimulus. So the banker that sits at a desk for 30 hours a day or 30 hours a day, Jesus, that would be nuts, right? For 30, 40 hours a week. Right. And then he does that for 30 years, and he's the guy that stands up and looks like he's still sitting. It's just because, like, that is the stimulus we're giving to the body. We're telling the body, hey, this is where we are, you know, and the body will respond and naturally adapt there. Doesn't mean that's where we should be. And that's where pain signals start to, you know, flare up. And pain is the way that the body can communicate with us that something's wrong. You know, it's not that the body wants to live in pain. And it's kind of like the old saying of, like, if you don't move, you rust.
Yeah.
No different than a car.
Yeah.
And so it's just like that would probably be, if rather than a specific injury, just more of a trend that in general, like we just lack movement more and more that we go through life. And that becomes harder. The pelvis stops tilting anteriorly, posteriorly, and starts losing its ability to hip hike and rotate. And then the spine will react off of that. And then the spine loses its mobility. And the body's this system comprised of mobile and stable joints. And the second that one loses mobility, now all of a sudden, like another joint has to make up for it.
Yeah.
And so your stable joints start acting as mobile joints, and bad things start to happen.
So what do you think is the best thing that like the average sedentary individual could do every day to improve or kind of balance that so they're not, looking like they're sitting 30 years later?
Yeah. I mean, you have stand desks and all these things that are crazy, like, posture chairs, or let's put this strap on and then get my shoulders to come back or whatever. So you've all these external things, right? Yeah. And the biggest piece with posture is these are exercises that don't rely on this.
Yes.
I don't need to do anything for you. If you're doing the exercise and putting your body in a position to do the exercise, then you're essentially teaching your body how to do it itself. Mm-hmm. You're rewiring the system. If I could give one exercise to everybody that doesn't have equipment, it would be freaking lay on your back. Like, go on a hard surface, throw your legs up over a chair at 90 degrees, and just lay on your back.
Just lay there?
Just lay there. Let gravity have a passive influence on the body, but what you're doing is you're putting your pelvis and your upper body on the same plane. It's a horizontal plane.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
But you're putting it on the same plane.
Yeah.
If I'm sitting here in a chair, my pelvis and my upper body are not on the same plane. Mm-hmm. Sometimes when we stand, like just because you have a stand desk, that's great. It's better than sitting. But just because we stand doesn't also mean like we could bail our pelvis forward and our upper body goes back, because we're fighting gravity.
Yep.
And the body's job is to stay upright, or pelvis kind of bails because hip flexor stability is lacking, and then the upper back rounds. And then you start to have kyphosis, So you can have all of these things, but man, at the end of the day, if you just want to lay down for 5-10 minutes and just put your back and your pelvis on the same plane, throw your legs up, you can get a lot of relief doing something like that. If we actually go to having a piece of equipment, I think it's like $25, $30 on Amazon. You can buy like a little pack of two 25-degree foot wedges.
Okay.
And It's up on my Instagram page. I think it's literally titled like exercise everybody needs. Mm-hmm. But you back those up against the wall and you stand on them.
Yeah.
So the toes are above the heels and you stand on that for 5 minutes. But that's how I start my days. Jump on the slant board, shower, warms up or whatever, read the news, but you're just hanging out there. And what happens when you drop your heels is it's putting a stretch on the gastrocnemius, the calf. And the calf has two heads that will attach into the femur. And if the feet are straight, you're essentially neutralizing through pulling that Y, you're neutralizing the femur. Mm-hmm. So as major attaches to the femur, and then the L1 through L5. So that's going to have a chain reaction response to the femur rotation. Pelvis responds to that. Lumbar spine, thoracic spine, cervical spine, shoulders. I mean, everything. It's literally head to toe. Mm-hmm. So man, if I could put a slant board in everybody's house, that would be great.
Yeah, yeah. I know you're training mostly baseball players, but do you see more posture and back problems in males or females?
That's a good question. I would probably say, before. So I had my therapy clinic before I ran into Hamels, and that's kind of what threw me back into the sports world. Probably say males were more dominant. It was just a pain clinic, and the average clientele was 60, 65 years old, but it was probably 65, 70% men.
Okay.
So
how'd you like just a normal therapy clinic compared to working with athletes?
I loved it.
Okay.
Obviously passion is because of myself and my own story. Yep. Passion was athletes.
Yep.
And I wanted to kind of flip the script on athletic training and development and really make sure athletes didn't have to go through what I had to.
Yep.
But even in the chronic pain world and dealing with 65 years old, take somebody's pain away and you give them their life back. I mean, that is
something to that.
A different level of fulfillment than just transactional with cash or anything like that. And I think that's part of business is obviously, I mean, you have to make money to survive, but when you have a level of fulfillment too, that's what kind of keeps you in the grind day in and day out. And when you have a woman that walks in and says, I had a lumbar fusion, I had a cervical fusion, and now I'm having thoracic herniations. And the doctor says that if he has to fuse that, they're going to have to displace my rib cage to do it, and I won't be able to pick up my kids anymore. And I have 2 twins that are 2 years old.
Yep.
I mean, that is, and then you start working that route. And I can remember specifically one day she came into the clinic, she hit the therapy floor, and like as soon as she stepped in from the lobby, hits the therapy floor, we make eye contact, she just starts bawling. And so then I'm sitting there going, oh shit, this is either really good or really bad, right? You never knew what you were walking into.
Yeah.
She had, I think that weekend prior, she had taken her kids to the mall with the nanny, but she got her kids in and out of the car.
Okay.
She picked them up.
I
have an 8-year-old. You talk about being able to hold your child versus not holding your child because of pain.
Yep.
You give somebody the ability to do that. It's you can't put a price on that. That's life changing.
Yeah.
So that kind of stuff is really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So you meet Hamels.
Yeah.
And then you get thrown back into the sports world. Tell us that story.
Yeah. So a guy came into that therapy clinic for shoulder pain one day, and just general conversation, trying to understand, okay, where's this pain coming from? What does he do for a living? You have your general questions to get information.
Yeah.
And he said he was a strength coach. And so immediately then I go to the mental side. Like, this guy has an understanding of the body.
Yes.
If I'm going to get him to buy into my ridiculous, weird, off-the-wall stuff, and I'm going to say, hey, trust me, I dropped out of school and I taught myself this stuff. I have no degree to do what I'm doing, but trust me, it works. Then I have to blow his mind.
Yes.
Right? I have to make him kind of start to look at things the same way that Troy did for me when I was 16, 17 years old. And so immediately I was like, what can't you do? He said, I can't do a push-up. So I made him show me, and he does 5. He points to the spot that it hurts, and I gave him one exercise. 2 minutes later, I'm like, drop down, do them again. He does 30 with no pain. He was like, okay, what was that? 2 weeks later, I got an email that said Cole Hamels wants to see you. He was the strength coach of the Rangers at the time.
Oh, wow.
And that was it. So here we are.
So you meet him, and do you immediately start ZL Performance, or how do you get into it? What happens? Like,
yeah, ZL Performance was so I had my clinic, and that was under a different entity.
Yes.
And then I started growing with Hamels through 2018. I really just worked on him all year. And by spring training of 2019, I mean, it was, the word of mouth was around. You have a guy like Cole Hamels that starts to put his name and his reputation behind your work. It really takes off. I mean, that guy, I owe him ZL Performance. Right. He might not have called me Posture Guy, but he created Posture Guy.
Okay.
Just by his word of mouth. And fortunately now, I mean, he's one of my best friends.
Yeah.
And so it's really cool how those kind of start as business relationships, and you're doing a job for somebody, but then turns into something much more deeper, fulfilling, and lifelong. But he, I guess by end of spring training 2019, I had worked on 50, 60 guys in Major League Baseball. And
before you even started the company?
Yeah.
Wow.
And so then it was like, okay, so I had this, and then the therapy clinic, and I was like, all right, therapy clinic, we're gonna end that entity. And ZL Performance was kind of born in March of 2019 with the Major League guys. So
yeah,
started running with that from there.
And then you kind of like expanded down to high school and college and middle school. And
yeah, it was interesting because as cool as that was, and don't get me wrong, the pro guys are great.
Yep.
I love to operate at a high level. But I got midway through 2019, and there's also definitely some struggles along that way. But I got midway through 2019, and aside from the struggles of professional athletes, like being in heavy spring training, and then all of a sudden you go from 30 guys to 5.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh crap, like where do they all go?
Yeah.
And sometimes you just get guys that are spring training focused and get their bodies right, and then season they disappear.
Yep.
But so there was a little bit of that, but then there was also like, I called my dad one day and I was just like, hey, don't get me wrong. I love the pro guys, but I think I'm missing something. And he's owned his own business since he was 26. And he was kind of just the first one to remind me, like, well, why did you ever want this in the first place? And it was the 16-year-old version of myself. It was the high school athlete that had injury after injury and just couldn't get right. Regardless of having a great physical therapist at that time, and great people around you, you couldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
That was the passion part that I was missing.
Okay.
And so then in the fall of 2019 was when I kind of started Zero Limits, and it started with just me doing everything. Even though I've never played baseball before, by being around guys like Hamels and the best of the best, you started to learn enough mechanics and different pieces to be dangerous, pretty darn good. But it allowed me to start just as myself doing the strength and conditioning, the therapy, the pitching development.
Yeah.
I never touched hitting. I know where I can succeed.
Okay, you have other people.
That was not one of them. Yeah. Well, that's what I also figured out, even with the pitching side and the strength and conditioning side, is this is good, but could it be better?
Yes.
And so if I take a step back and just focus on my lane that I'm really good at, where can I find people around me to build this team and build this kind of unique approach coming from my experience with Major League Baseball, build a unique approach that creates a team of experts in their own facets around those high school players.
Yeah.
So it's the same reason, the same way that I was hired by the Major League guys. I'm there for therapy.
Yeah.
I'm not there to be their hitting coach or pitching coach or nutritionist, or they have other people for that.
Yeah.
But you're all part of that team around the one player.
Okay.
That's what I wanted to create with Zero Limits.
Yes.
And so started the kind of the junior side of things or the youth side of things, and then it just blew up from there.
Yeah. So you said at the beginning you were kind of just doing everything, and then you kind of expanded and built out a team. We like to talk about sports business on this podcast. What did that teach you about running a business? 'Cause, I know you already had the therapy clinic, but I mean, just coming into it and just doing everything and then learning that you need to build out a team. There's a lot of business lessons that come from that.
Yeah.
So what did that teach you about the business side of it?
Well, it's kind of like anything in team sports, right?
Yeah.
Your team you're only as good as the person next to you.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of adopting the rising tide lifts all ships mentality. It's like, if you want to create, there's plenty of business owners, and I'm not knocking this, but they want to create a business where they put in the work, they build something, and then they're drinking Mai Tais on a beach somewhere, and everybody else is working for them.
Yep.
And that's fine. There's businesses where that can succeed. In this business with athletes, what my experience has been through all of this is that there's too deep of relationships that are involved to have that.
Makes sense.
And so it's like when you go from, and I can remember this, when we first brought in our first pitching guy, and it was, I'm off the floor from pitching, this guy is it. Our athletes were in complete better hands with this guy versus me.
Okay.
They hated it. I mean, it was, I wouldn't say a disaster, but it was a struggle because it was just that change in relationship.
Yes.
And so you learn those kind of pieces, like those relationships are what matters. It's not like you could have a B- product, but an A+ relationship, and it works. It still is going to work.
Yeah.
I mean, placebo effects are a real thing.
Real thing.
Right. So, and the relationships are what kind of drives that in this industry, in training athletes.
Yep.
You can have all the expertise in the world, but if you can't actually communicate that expertise effectively through a positive relationship with your athlete, then your expertise is worth nothing.
Yeah.
So that was probably one of the biggest things business wise that I learned is the relationship is everything. It's where it all, it all builds off of that.
Yeah. Was there a point there maybe when you started building out the team to where you thought of yourself as, instead of saying I train athletes, you say like I'm running a business, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean you wear a lot of hats.
Yeah.
Especially in a small business.
Yeah.
I mean, we're never going to be a 100-person enterprise, or 1,000.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a small business, and I like it. Like, talk to buddies all the time. It's like, how do you scale this, and how do you, replicate what you do? And it's like, I don't know. You know how to clone people? Like, if you don't know how to clone people, then you can't in this industry. And it doesn't mean you can't grow it to 100 people and 100 employees. Your product will take a hit. There's definitely companies that do it.
Yeah.
That their core team of executives are really, really good in this training environment. And when you start to expand that out to other coaches, the product kind of
it's watered down
a little bit. Yeah. It doesn't mean that it can't work.
Yeah.
But for me, that's just it's not anything that I ever see myself retiring from.
Okay.
Yeah. Are you going to work the 70-hour grind, 80-hour grind every week that I used to? I mean, I still am right now. But I love it. My roles have definitely changed.
Mm-hmm.
Might not be 80 hours on the floor. But I'm still fielding phone calls at 9 o'clock at night.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's just, the roles have definitely changed, but the I guess principle of the industry hasn't, I want to be in it.
Yeah.
I don't want to pull myself out of it.
Yeah. And then you mentioned how important those relationships are, even if the product's not A+. Obviously, best case is A+ product and A+ relationships, but I'm just curious, what's like the vibe? What's the culture like at ZL? Like when a player walks in, are you guys all like how do you balance being a coach, a trainer, like, and their friend? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, it's definitely a fine line to walk. We have a young team.
Yep.
And that helps just because one of our pitching coaches, he might be like 2 years removed from throwing 95 himself. And so, but our coaches are still, even me at 35, and then Christian, I think, is 32 or 33. Derek, Tanner, and Trevor are all in their 20s. We still compete. I'd put Derek pound for pound. I think he's somewhere around 160. But strength-wise, I'd put him pound for pound against anybody.
Wow.
Dude's a freak.
Yeah.
Tanner, just recently, I think he was one stage away maybe from the Olympic team for Canada with javelin. So he's super into that,
Yeah.
And then, I dabble with some professional qualifiers in golf. Christian was invited to Team USA. I think it was Team USA flag football. So it's like, we're
a lot of stuff going on.
We still want to play. We still want to compete and do our things. And I think kids especially, and I think even from the professional side, they see that when you are actually one that practices what you preach. Nobody wants to take nutrition advice from the guy that's 50 pounds overweight. Like, no offense.
Yeah, it's true.
He can have all the expertise in the world, but there's also just something to be said behind, like, do you even do it, or are you just telling me what to do?
Yep.
And maybe at the professional level, that's a little bit different because it is their job, it is their career, and they should be able to take that ownership. Mm-hmm. But for a 16-year-old kid, and you want to get their buy-in and their dedication to it, the fact that every single therapy exercise that is programmed in our athletes' apps, it's me in the video. It's not somebody else that can do it. It's me doing it. Yeah. And, there's not anything that we ask our athletes in the building to do that we as a coaching staff cannot do ourselves. And I think that helps create a culture, aside from then just who we are as people. We remind ourselves all the time. And, again, me being a father, and I talk with parents about this a lot before they come in the program. It's baseball first, It's what drives everybody in the building. It's their sport. But in this day and age, if you can put your child, who you put your child around, like it's got to be a high quality individual, you know? And so I don't take that lightly either. When these kids walk in the building, yes, baseball, but who are you going to be as a human being in 10 years? Yeah. If baseball doesn't work out, you know, you can go play college and then you got to go get a job. And to have guys that are in that professional career now, stage of their life, and they're still popping back in, or, you know, they dropped baseball and they just went to college, but they're still popping in for the summer. Like that kind of culture and environment, community that's created is something pretty special too.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. And I want to touch back on that. So you had this woman that you had in the therapy clinic, and you kind of changed her thinking, and she came in broken and left with belief again. Is there a transformation story from ZL Performance that just hits different like that? You know, whether it's like a 10-year-old, 16-year-old, or a pro.
Yeah. God, there's a lot that I could do. I'm gonna go to one, and I'm gonna catch flack for this from a couple of the other guys I'm thinking of. Griffin is one of the first ones that jumps to the top of mind. He came to us in his sophomore year. This was January of 2020.
College or high school?
High school.
High school.
He was a lefty at South Lake Carroll High School, and he was already committed to LSU. Absolute stud, good athlete, but he had never had an injury-free season.
Wow.
From 11 years old till, you know, at that point he was 15 or 16. And, you know, it was nothing major, but it was a lat strain, a delt strain, or just some back issue, something to shut him down always every year for 4 weeks. Knock on wood, nothing since. And so you take a guy like that, and he really was surrounded by what the zero limits performance method is. Yes. You know, pitching coach wants to get him into certain positions. Hey, let's evaluate these mechanics. We can make a few mechanical tweaks that can alleviate some of the stress that we're putting on that arm that causes those minor injuries. But if we don't understand his physical capacities, maybe the positions the pitching coach is trying to get him into, his body's not capable of doing. So if his back ankle is holding the rubber, and we're trying to get his front foot to this place without losing the external rotation on his back hip, that ankle, the kind of eversion mobility required of the ankle, if he doesn't have it, then he's always going to lose his back hip. And so bringing in the body guys to say, well, this is the capacity that we have. Here's the mechanics that we want. If it's not possible, then we're faced with two things. Do you change the capacities physically to match the mechanics, or do you alter the mechanics to match the capacities? Okay. Yeah. And a lot of that comes with, well, how much time do we have? You know, where are we going with this athlete? Is this a senior that's trying to get still recruited? And so all of those factors come into play, and then you create the plan, and then from there, just going and executing the plan. And so for him as a sophomore, conversation early on was, hey, you're going to LSU. Yeah. Two things stop that. The draft out of high school, really good. Yeah. An injury. Yep. Really bad. Yep. Let's do what we can to take away the bad one. And here's the best bet, and here's what our expertise says, and here's how we're going to go there. I think he came out then his junior year, 89 left side, first pitch of the game, 110th pitch of the game, 89. It's like, well, what do you think he wanted to see? What do you think we wanted to see? What do you think Dad wanted to see? Everybody wanted to see a 9. I was like, trust the process. Like, we'll get there. I don't need you throwing 95 as a junior, because you still have to get to the senior year. Yeah. And then I think his first game of his senior year, he came out and popped a 92. And then I think he popped a 94 in like the semifinal. They ended up winning state his senior year, but like region semifinal or something like that, popped a 94. And, you know, it's just all part of that process. But this was also a kid when we hit in the fall of his senior year, when we hit a like kind of like a, not hypertrophy, but just we wanted to put some mass on him. We want to keep range of motion, keep integrity, but put some weight on. Yeah. He was going through a kitchen renovation at home, 8 weeks without a kitchen. I got pictures of this guy grilling chicken in his driveway on camping equipment. Like his dedication to it is just a different level.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of kid that goes then to LSU, and he competes when they won the national title. He contributed as a freshman and played his sophomore year, got a couple accolades, and then boom, now he's drafted and he's in the Yankees organization. I think he was just named Pitcher of the Month for the minor leagues or in the Yankees.
So cool.
Yeah, it's just like you look at stories like that, and this is a kid that I can now take to dinner and have a beer with, for lack of better words, right? But it's like that's why in 2019, that's where the passion came from.
Yep.
Right. It was taking that athlete, eliminating those injuries, improving the output, and then being a part of not just a high school career, a college career, but now you get to be a part of a major league career. It's
so fulfilling.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
That's
it's definitely pretty cool. And then there's some athletes where we have those same stories, and for no other reason other than going a different route in life. They're playing career stops at high school.
Yeah.
Kid wins a state championship last year, goes to OU, and he's like, "No, I'm going to do my career and like study and get a job."
Yeah.
But you're still part of that guy's life and still served a role. And so I mean, I have stories left and right. But
yeah, and then you're friends.
For sure.
Yeah, you're friends.
Yeah, these are guys that are they're always going to come back. They're always going to say, "Hey." Hang out, but because of that culture and the character that was built, the culture that they were surrounded by, just because their playing career is done. I mean, we had a guy that still he wanted to come back and while he was studying for his accounting stuff, getting all of his licenses to be a financial advisor. He wanted to work for us just to be around it.
Yeah,
he didn't even care what the hourly was. He was just like, I just want to be here.
Yeah,
so
that's really cool.
Yeah, that's the culture that you can when you are a business owner and you have the opportunity to create, that so many people will focus on the nuts and bolts and the numbers. And like, that's great too. But if you have, it's necessary. I wouldn't say it's great. It's necessary. You have to focus on that. But the culture is what ultimately drives that.
Yeah.
It's kind of like take care of the person in front of you and all the other pieces will fall into place.
Yeah.
Zero Limits doesn't market.
Yeah.
We have social media because, I mean, in this day and age, I think you have to.
Mm-hmm.
But we never look at an athlete in front of us as a social post. We got some cool stuff going on, so we want to capture it and put it up there. But if you take care of the person in front of you, and then those results speak for themselves, the word of mouth, that's your marketing.
Yeah.
In this industry, at least.
I don't think people realize when someone watches a pitcher or a batter, I don't think people realize the depth of the mechanics and what you guys do. Like you were talking about his foot catching on the mound or his ankle turning. People don't realize all of these things matter, and they're just seeing, why, like, just throw faster. Like there's so many different things that go into it. I'm curious, how do you guys use data to kind of improve all of these different aspects?
Yeah, so the world of data, God, technology is great.
Yeah.
But it can definitely skew us a little bit.
Okay.
So I always like to take the approach of results driven, data influenced.
Okay.
Just because we can measure something does not mean it's important. So you have all of these high school kids and they're going to showcase after showcase and what's my exit velo? Okay, that's a big one for hitters.
Yeah.
Well, exit velo, the only controlled environment that we can measure it in, and I'm not saying it's not important, but hear me out on this. The only controlled environment we can measure it in is off of a tee, because that's the only way that it can remain consistent. And so when you have an athlete that comes in and says, I want to work on my exit velo, put a ball on a tee, backspin that thing to the back of the cage, just drive it as hard as you can. And let's just throw a number out there, say 85. If you then take that next ball, put it on the tee and say, hammer that thing 5 feet into the ground in front of you, his exit velo will jump. Okay, problem solved. So that's when I look at them and I'm like, good? That's what you wanted, right? You wanted more exit velo. And they're like, well, no. Okay. So it's not that it's not important, but it's like it's just because we measure this metric, we now put more emphasis on it, when in reality, exit velo in game is based on the freaking pitch coming at you, the velocity of that pitch, the angles of everything, where you square it up. It doesn't
a lot
exit
of
velocity,
external factors.
Correct. It doesn't quantify to a hit.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, you get these bloop singles, and still looks the same on the books.
Yeah.
The stat line. And so there's a lot of metrics like that. Bat speed, right? Cool. Bat speed, it's a power metric. Great, you're fast. Fast hands, whatever. The highest bat speeds in baseball never correlate to the best hitters in baseball. And at the major league level, it's like, why?
Yeah.
Anthony Rizzo's one of the greatest hitters, hands-wise, that I've ever seen. That guy's never had the highest bat speed.
Yeah.
So it's like, is it important? So what are we teaching with technology to the younger generation? And so, technology is definitely important. You have TrackMan that's kind of dominated now the pitching world. Colleges won't look at data unless it's recorded on a TrackMan. But there's definitely a ton of metrics that are useful. When and where is the right time to use them? That's different. A freshman in high school doesn't need TrackMan numbers.
Yeah.
He needs to learn his body still. This drive of technology has also kind of continued to influence what I think aids the injury epidemic in youth sports, which is overskilled and underdeveloped. We just want to play, right? I think if you looked at it was first week of March, there was not a major league pitcher by the first week of March that had thrown more than 3 innings in spring training, right? These are grown men.
Yeah.
At that same time, you had high school athletes throwing 7-inning complete games. Those same high school athletes will still be playing all summer and into the fall.
Yep.
And they're still going to be playing and throwing in games in October when these grown men are done. And so it's like, is the rise in injuries a crazy formula that we need to fix? Or is it just sometimes common sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think technology kind of leads us astray of that common sense. And it's like, guys need to develop physically to be able to handle the stress of the output that the game puts on them. And if we don't spend time developing because we're playing so much, it's kind of like you're just accelerating the gas into a brick wall.
So if a kid comes in and he's just solely focused on his numbers and the data, that can affect him negatively.
He won't be in our program.
He won't be in the program.
No.
How do you shift his mindset?
Well, I mean, program options kind of help that.
Okay.
So like if somebody comes in and says, hey, I want to join your pitching program, our pitching packages to join the pitching program, performance training is included.
Yeah.
I was like, well, I lift on my own. I don't want to. Okay, we're out. Okay. And it doesn't need I say it that casually, but it's there's definitely a lot more consideration and conversation with that, because I want to educate you as to hey, this is why we structure it this way. It would be negligent of me to let you come in and just focus on pitching, because all of my expertise tells me this is equally important. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, go back to the Griffin Herring situation. If we don't understand his physical capacities, then we're actually not going to be able to do as good of a job as we could on the mound with you. Not every issue that presents itself on the pitcher's mound or in the batter's box is fixed. There. Some of these physical limitations or capabilities need to be addressed off of that area, off the mound, out of the box. Then when we can work on those and hand them back to the skill coach, they got a completely different athlete to work with. Everybody's happy and it's cool. And so when you don't have those elements and you just have a really good pitching coach, sometimes you can find yourself beating your head into a wall. Yeah. Because you're trying to fix something in a pitching lesson that's never going to be fixed there. Yeah. And that's kind of the unique approach to why Zero Limits was started the way that it was, with all of those aspects coming together. Yeah, exactly. Because you can't expect a pitching coach to know that either, right? Yep. And so that's where I used to do it all, but take a step back and let somebody else that's better than me in that department. If somebody walks in with back pain and they talk to the pitching guy about it, wrong guy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's what I'm here for.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, again, just goes into that team approach of what we built.
It feels like it cultivates kind of a better culture and relationship for the athlete too, when they're doing their lifting there, when they're doing their pitching there, when they're doing their recovery there, because they're just getting to know everybody knows everybody. Because if an athlete's coming in and they're saying, I want to pitch here, but I will lift on my own, like, you want to see what they're doing. You want to see every aspect of what they're doing.
Correct, because if you don't, you're creating a gap.
Yeah.
And the whole bridging of gaps that I set out to do with Zero Limits was, youth baseball was, I do my pitching lesson over here, my 30-minute private pitching lesson over here. I lift up at school. If something hurts, mom takes me to the doctor. None of those people talk to each other.
Yep.
And it doesn't mean that can't work. But if they all talk to each other and actually came together and built programs around you using their expertises, could that be better?
Yeah.
And the answer is yeah. I mean, 90% of the time, for sure, it's going to be better. And so that's why, when it comes to then, okay, flip script, like that's the therapy expertise and the knowledge that you've acquired over the years tells you this is the right way to do it. How do you then package that into the business standpoint? And it's one of the reasons why, if you walked into Zero Limits Performance today and said, I'm ready to sign up, saw your website, ready to go, how do I do it? They'll hand you my phone number. Everybody comes through me.
Yep.
And so when I talk about like role shifting and different things like that, I might not be on the floor as much. I got my pro guys that I travel with and do all of that. But then the business backside of things, the financials and all of that. But the communication is now one of my major roles. It's like you're coming to me, not because I'm trying to control everything, but because in that conversation, I'm going to make sure you fully understand what you're getting into by coming in here. I'm going to educate you on why we do it the way that we do it, and use that opportunity to. I've had conversations that are hours, or an hour long, and that is. We talked about relationships earlier. Yeah. That's literally the kickstart to potentially a 6-7 year relationship with that kid.
Yep.
So that hour is extremely valuable in my time, to make sure that they understand who we are and what we do and why we do it. I can't automate that, so that's another thing is like, well, how can you scale this? Can you get the guy that's going to say the same thing that I will in the phone call, and have him do phone calls at the same time as me?
Yeah.
Maybe you can probably get pretty close, but ultimately, like, nobody can do what I do on the phone.
Yeah.
And that opportunity to have that conversation, I'll look at it as a way of, even if you don't come into the program after, we're still going to have a great talk. I'm going to provide expertise and knowledge that maybe a parent doesn't have. And parents, they're just trying to find the best thing for their kid.
Yep.
But then also, rather than just saying, here's our pricing options, like pick what you want, you got to give, backing as to why that goes there, because there's years of experience of that trial and error of figuring things out. That's like, hey, we got a really good product right now. Here's what they are, but let me tell you why we have them this way. And usually people make pretty good sense of it.
Yeah, I really like that mindset that you have, that this hour conversation is going to possibly lead to a 6, 7, 8, whatever, 10, 20 year relationship. Yeah. And I just think that would make it so much more motivating to just get on the phone and talk to someone. It's a 9-year-old kid, 10-year-old kid. Yeah. That's cool.
I absolutely.
That is really cool. That is cool.
I get all the time, like, parents say, like, I can't believe you spent this much time with me. I'm like, are you kidding me? They're like, oh, you probably answer these questions all day. I do. I repeat the same conversation. It's the same questions. It's all it's intake, right? So it is the same conversation, but it's like, that's some of the small stuff that I think in business, when you do something over and over again, you can forget the value in it. Or you can also just, if you don't have that initial passion, like, that's what causes the kind of the monotonous and the drudgery of
not wanting to be
like, oh, I got to do this again. Yeah. There's a lot of people in their jobs that, like, it's the same thing over and over again. Yeah. And if that level of passion just wasn't there from the start, then that's what kind of creates this dreary existence of like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
I could do the same thing 8 hours a day, 8 phone calls, hour long, and my voice will be shot, but I love it because it is, I'm passionate about what we built as a team. I love talking about our guys. I love sharing information. And even if that doesn't translate into you came into this program, I also look at that as its own form of marketing, because we're going to have a great conversation that parents might say, hey, that wasn't right for my kid, but hey, have you heard about this place when they're at the ball field on the weekend? You should talk to this guy. I've had referrals come from kids who aren't even in the program. They just had a conversation with me, So there's definitely always ways to look at it.
Yeah. I know your specific role has changed throughout, when you had your therapy clinic and in ZL Performance, your role has changed drastically from when you started. But how has this journey affected you or changed you personally?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's, you have to be okay with messing up, right?
Yeah.
And I'm definitely a perfectionist by nature. And I think over the course of doing this, since I was 26 was when I opened Zero Limits. That was my first kind of entity, and then the therapy clinic attached to it. But building a staff, building a team, building a culture, I've been affected not just by years of doing this and learning along the way, or acquiring knowledge from continuing education and learning from other people who you might see as leaders in the industry, but learning kind of also from who you have within.
Yeah.
And I think that's a pretty unique piece to early CEO mentality versus aged CEO mentality, which is like I can actually learn from that 26-year-old that I just hired. And if I didn't have that approach early on, it was kind of like no, this is my way.
Yeah.
And that works for some, and it doesn't work for others.
Mm-hmm.
Managing employees it's an interesting task, especially in 2025, right? But I think adapting that mindset of just the same thing we do with players is how to coach specifically to them to get the most out of them. Being able to adapt how you are as an owner, a boss, to get the most out of your players, like really caring about what they're passionate about, what do they want for their future. This Zero Limits isn't just about mine. My future exists because of theirs, because of their job that they have right now. The work that they do impacts me. The work that I do impacts them.
Yep.
So looking at this like hierarchy is like the traditional business method, but the from what I've learned, the best people and most respected in business is the guys who, that rising tide lifts all ships.
Yep.
There's the All Blacks. You heard of the New Zealand rugby team, the All Blacks? So there's a book. What was this book called? Oh my God, it's on the tip of my tongue. It's going to come to me in like 5 minutes. But there's a book that talks about the New Zealand rugby team, the All Blacks, and this mentality that they had, the sweep the sheds mentality. I don't know if you've heard of that. No. And so it's basically the concept of never being too big for the smallest task.
Okay.
And so you have the shed where all their equipment was held at the end of practice, and naturally, who do you think on the team sweeps the sheds and keeps the place clean at the end of the day? It's not the guys at the top, right? It's always the rookie on the team.
Yeah.
That would be the All Blacks. Theirs is the captains. The captains are the one making sure it's done right.
Yep.
And then also setting that expectation or that show of leadership. Leadership can come in so many different forms. But that was an interesting concept that Legacy is the book. I knew I'd figure it out. But that helps you create that culture and that ethos of never being too big for the smallest task. When I had read that and started to put that into practice, this is a funny story. It was something as stupid as a trash can. So I'm walking across the gym. I can see the trash can's full. There's so many times where I've walked past that. It's just like, hey, that's the end of the night checklist, and that's not my responsibility. Not that I don't take that approach, but that's what goes on in your head.
Yep.
And this one time it was after, going through this reading, I was like, screw it, I'm freaking take it out. So I start pulling this bag of trash out, and one of our coaches sprints across the gym. He's like, I got it. I'm like, dude, nobody's in trouble. Like, I got it. You're doing your thing. I can do mine. And that, again, just we talk about culture that you create from coaches to athletes, but the culture that you create within the organization too is super important. Yeah. And that's been a really big thing that has probably I've chosen to adapt. And in a small business, you can do a lot more than you can in large corporations. But if I'm the only one that looks at the numbers per se, and I don't need to share all of that nitty gritty with everybody, but if I shared enough with our team and the department heads, our pitching department, and let's just break down the pitching area and the hitting area itself. Yep. I don't need to show you what we bought for the gym or anything like that and what everybody makes. Like, that's not what I'm saying, but it's like, let me talk to you specifically about these numbers and then how they impact you. If I can create a sense of ownership that they have in it, legally on paper, there's not ownership. Yeah. But just the culture is, we are all in this kind of trench with each other, and we all impact each other so greatly. Yep. Again, small business wise, but you just do things differently than maybe what other places might, and they have that sense of ownership, and you watch people take it and run with it. It's kind of like, if you hire the right people, I find it very hard that if you give them the opportunity, that people don't want to succeed. There are definitely some that just, they want an overnight pill of success, and but for the most part, people are fine working for something. Yeah. If then they feel and receive the benefit. Yeah. And so they kind of want that ownership. Not everybody's going to be entrepreneurs. There's the financial risk. There's all these other things that come with it. Owning sounds cool. But there's a lot more that comes with it. But if you can at least give them this environment and culture where I value you just as much as I value myself as an owner. I want your input. Think of this as your product. How would you alter this program? What would you do? It's like we got to our summer schedule, and we were changing things up. And in this industry, when you're working on kids, you're working till 9 o'clock at night. It's not a 9 to 5. It's like, if you want to go home at 5 o'clock, find another job. Yeah. This isn't it. Yeah. And when we sat down for creating our summer schedule, it's kind of like, we have flexibility to do some earlier stuff, and then we want to do later stuff because not every kid drives themselves, and kind of putting that together. Years past, I built it, I put it out, and I say, here's the schedule. It's fine. Like, that's my job. Yeah. This time, this year, this was something new. We sat down together and I said, hey, here's the number of kids in the pitching program. Here's their weekly sessions that are purchased, because it's all monthly based. So I know how many pitching sessions we are going to fulfill. Yep. I want to run the schedule at an 80% utilization, so we leave flexibility to move things around, and I don't get calls of like, I can't get into the class I want. And we're not an airline overselling seats, right? Yeah. So I give them here's the framework that I would build the schedule off of. Monday to Thursday, here's how many classes we're going to do, because here's the class size. What do you want? And I'll let them build the schedule. How can somebody then get pissed off about the hours that they work? Like, you built it. Yeah. So there's that side of things, but then also, like, it's when you have opportunities to there's definitely times where it's like, hey, no, I'm going to veto this. Yep. And we're going to go this route. Yep. But when you have the other opportunities to create the culture within the staff that everybody has a say and a share in this, then, and you provide them the understanding and the backing that most companies might not for those decisions. When you do have that veto, for the most part, you get everybody that goes, all right, you got it.
Yeah.
You know, because they understand, like, there are times and places for that, but for the most part, they have a piece of this and ownership in it. So it's a little bit different.
I love that. That's so important for, you know, cultivating a good environment in the office, because it's just letting people feel like they have a voice is so important, and having that collaboration and team environment is amazing. And and that's awesome that you let everybody, you know, see the schedule and kind of pick their own thing. I really like that.
Yeah, and I mean, they're in a role. I have experience from my past that I'm going to use to cultivate them. Iron sharpens iron, right? I mean, the cliche saying, but it really is. Like, if you take that approach of, hey man, I'm here for you, you're here for me. That team approach is it's really special when you do it right. If you want a dictatorship, probably stay as a one-on-one coach.
Was there a time period throughout your journey where you were tested with your commitment, or what sacrifices have you made throughout this journey, and were they worth it?
Yeah. I mean, I could sit here today and tell you I think it's going to fail tomorrow. You know, I mean, it's just, I was talking to a buddy about that a while ago, and I was just like, man, I feel like everything could just collapse tomorrow. And he's like, welcome to entrepreneurship, you know? And it really is. I mean, it's some of those things that just, those are the pieces of, I think, what might drive people out of entrepreneurship.
Risk.
It has its risks. And, you know, when shit hits the fan, you're the one that's impacted by it. You know, if Zero Limits has grown really, really well in the last couple of years, like every business has a rainy season. You know, you want to prepare for that in the good times. And so if we hit a little bit of a rainy season for the last year and a half, and then now we're starting to, I mean, you could just feel the energy and the momentum around the company and the team. But in that last year and a half, like, everybody keeps their jobs and salaries. Yeah. And we're all grinding. But as the owner, the number one person who's impacted with that ebb and flow is you. Yep. And that's not fun. No. So I mean, there's definitely always times, especially in the last year and a half for us, where it's just like, oh my God, I think I might need to change my career path. Yeah. Not legitimately, but you know, you have those thoughts some days.
Higher highs and lower lows.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, I think it's natural in life. And that kind of just goes to the way that I combat that is, a little bit of understanding just how our mind works. You know, we'll have, I'm not going to throw out the right number, but let's just say it's 20,000 thoughts a day. 80% of those are problem-centric thoughts. Yeah. You know, we are wired to identify problems. Yep. If you had to think of the last time you were grateful for something or the last time you said, man, I wish I had that, you're probably finding the negative one first. Yep. Right. You don't see many people walking around going like, oh God, I'm so thankful for oxygen. But without it, we wouldn't last long. Yep. Right. It is the most abundant resource that we have at our disposal that is required to live, and not one person sits there and I'm so thankful for this breath unless they're freaking losing it. Yep. You know? Yep. And so we're wired to be like, oh, look, especially with social media, like, God, don't get me started on that. It's like we compare ourselves to everything that we see. And, you know, we have these problem-centric thoughts. So again, we go back like in the business world in these tough times, 20,000 thoughts a day, 80% are negative thoughts. Okay. I think it's like 70 or 80% of that 80% won't ever come to fruition. So we have 80% negative thoughts in our day-to-day life, and the majority of them will never happen. You know, and so it's like that is when we can get stuck in that problem-centric thinking, we're going to spiral out of control. Depression, anxiety, like all of those things start to spike.
Yeah.
And it's not about like, let's change the brain and how it's wired, because we're not going to do that, but adapting methods of saying, okay, if I identify the problem in under, say, a minute, I want to create a solution for it. And then I'm no longer thinking about the problem. I'm just thinking about the process and the solution. Okay. If I go in business and I start focusing on results and I just hone in on results, I probably won't end up getting that result.
Yeah.
If I just stick to my process, and understand that the success is not a hockey stick trajectory. It's the roller coasters.
Yeah.
When you zoom out, you want to see it do this, but if we zoom in and just get a snapshot, we think about the high rise and the fall. And so it's adopting this mentality of create the solutions for the problems, not stop thinking about the problems. Now, you can identify the problems. That's okay.
Yeah.
But don't spiral in them. You have to find the solution to come out of it, and then start continuing to move forward. So I mean, it's every single day that, especially as an entrepreneur, that you have, you're faced with things, faced with adversity, and no different than the way that you're faced with adversity when you're on the field.
Yep.
I mean, I tell kids, especially when I see kids going through, like, I'm hanging up my career, right? It's like, well, you're not done being a competitor. I compete every day. I just don't do it on a lacrosse field anymore. My arena is now ZL Performance.
Yep.
And I'm going to be the freaking best.
Yep.
So it's the mindset that you take to it to combat those, combat the adversity that you're going to face.
Yeah. And you mentioned, 20,000 thoughts a day, and 80% are negative. And I just think it's so cool what you do, because, people have all these problems every day and all these negative thoughts, but when they have a health problem, there's only one problem.
Right.
You know what I mean? So like when they have a health problem or an injury, there's one problem, and that's what you fix. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
It's interesting, but that's where it's like, I've learned to, in the last, I'll turn 36 in 2 weeks. So 10 years now of owning a company.
Yeah.
And in the last 10 years, I've learned to I'm thankful for those problems. They're not fun, but it's kind of a weird mentality to take, but it's like, I'm thankful to have problems, because if I have problems, it means I have something.
Yep.
For
sure.
Versus just sitting there saying, like, complaining all day. I did a lot of work with last spring with the Adaptive Training Foundation. This was kind of something that really helped me take a different approach, because there was definitely a time in my previous career where you get to a spot, or not previous career, but early in my career, you get to a spot where it's like, well, my time deserves a pay, right? And so I don't want to do this unless I'm receiving this.
Yep.
And that's definitely a young, immature mentality, because, like I even said to you on the phone, or about the phone calls, like, that still provides value to me. I didn't get paid for that phone call.
Yep.
And even if that person doesn't sign up, it still provides value. So you take a different approach to how you view those things. But I did some work with the Adaptive Training Foundation, and they work with a lot of military, first responders, people who've lost a leg or lost an arm, and or you have catastrophic injuries where a cheerleader's doing some stunting in her backyard and breaks her neck and is now paralyzed. You have these athletes who have every ability to say no, and every reason to say no, to not show up, but yet they still do. Or we talk about, like, we don't verbally out loud thank the universe or thank God for that every single breath we take, until we are in dire need of that breath, and so it's just, it's taking a step back and trying to just put a little bit of a twist, not live in a fairyland, where problems don't exist.
Yeah.
But just putting a different twist on those problems, because everything could always be worse.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that mindset because just it's hard to be negative when you're thankful for your problems.
Right.
So no, I love that. I want to get into our rapid fire segment.
Oh God.
It's fun. Our viewers really like this segment. It's fun for the guests too. First one here, childhood sports hero.
Payne Stewart.
Why?
He was different.
Different. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I like the guy that stood out. He wore the knickers and the whole taxi cab hat, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, that was my dude.
Yeah. Okay. You're from Maryland, so Maryland crab cakes or Texas barbecue?
Dude, it's not even a question. It's crab cakes.
Really?
Yeah, you guys have no idea.
I don't know. I've never had a Maryland.
Yeah, it's
really.
I've never touched a crab cake in Texas. They're disgusting.
What?
Yeah,
I had one last weekend. It was pretty good.
No. You have no idea.
Okay.
Crab cake in Maryland is like this. It's like softball.
Oh.
And it's like there's no filler. There's no like freaking chopped up peppers or God knows what they put in crab cakes now, breading and all of that stuff. Like no, it is lump crab meat that's just balled up together in little broil, and it's like that's it. Yeah.
Okay.
No, it
not a competition.
Not even close.
Cool. If you could train any athlete in history, who would you work with and why?
Who? I'd probably go with Jordan or Kobe. And I'm not a basketball guy.
Okay.
But just being a sports fan, and obviously, I mean, I don't know who they are, who Jordan is as a person, and who Kobe was. You just see the documentaries and all the same stuff that we all can watch, but you just respect somebody that is so driven through whatever adversity or opportunities they did or didn't have, and even when they are the best, they're still pushing forward to the next level of being better. But then they balance that with who they are in their community, who they are to their families. And I just always think that what I've watched on them or seen on them is super respectable, aside from just being a stud, but yeah, I think those two would be pretty cool.
Nice. Okay, go-to song or artist when you're training someone or just to listen to?
Yeah, No Diggity.
No Diggity.
Yeah.
It's a good song.
Old school.
Old school.
Yeah, it's funny because every one of my morning workouts, I'll start it with that.
Really?
Yeah, and I just start like little movement prep, but No Diggity. It's not a pump up song by any means. But when I started Zero Limits and I was first class, I was doing things all by myself. We would start with our dynamic, our warm up, and I'd play the song, and then I'd start introing the warm up, and then 2-3 months in, I would just click the song, and the guys would just start their warm up.
There's a cue. It was like a cue start.
Yeah, the Pavlov.
The Pavlov.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just click the song, and they just start moving. So that song's
cool.
held a lot with me for Zero Limit. So that's definitely a go-to. I mean, I still keep that. I just had one of our kids, sophomore or junior year in high school, was with us, and then went to Biola, played, and then went to Georgetown for post-grad and played. And he just hung it up. He called me to end of May to tell me, like, hey, thanks for everything. Like, playing career's over, off to get a job. Great kid. But we had a laugh about No Diggity. He was like, dude, every time I hear it, I immediately start to move.
Yeah.
I'm like, wait a minute, I'm at my job.
Yeah.
I can't do stretches. So it's funny, but yeah, that's my go-to.
Okay, coffee, tea, or energy drink?
Coffee. Yeah.
Coffee.
Yeah, 1,000%. 100. Oh yeah.
Black coffee? Nothing?
Always. Nothing.
Sugar, no milk?
Nothing.
No.
Straight up black coffee.
Okay.
Throw the hair on the chest. And yeah, I mean, I think just caffeine and pure caffeine. I mean, I'll take caffeine pills, mixed with a little L-theanine every morning. I don't do coffee before the workout. It's always after. There's probably like 800 milligrams of coffee a day, or caffeine a day.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
It's a lot of
no
coffee.
energy drink though. I don't want that crap in my body.
Okay.
Just give me the caffeine.
Okay. Yeah.
Caffeine and nicotine. That's what I live off of.
Okay, what is something people would be surprised to learn about you, like hidden talent, hobby, unexpected hobby?
Um, Golf, maybe.
Golf.
Yeah, that would be
Okay.
it. So
What do you shoot?
I'm a plus handicap.
Oh,
So it's I scratch. I'm probably a 0 right now, but
Okay.
I've gotten as low as like a +2,
Oh.
+3.
yeah.
So
That's awesome. Favorite sports movie?
greatest game ever played. So golf movie. Francis, we met in I think it was one of the U.S. Opens early on, but just an amateur caddy that worked, lived across the street, worked at the local club. U.S. Open comes around and he ends up qualifying and finds himself in competing and then going into extras with, the Tiger Woods of the game at the time, right? Yep. I think his name was Harry Varden, and ended up beating him and was the winner of the U.S. Open.
Yeah.
So
awesome.
Yeah, I love that movie.
Okay, if you were not running an athlete training business, what career would you be in today?
Be a lawyer.
A lawyer?
Oh yeah.
Why?
In a heartbeat.
Why?
Super detail oriented. There's not a lot of things, and the team can speak on our processes. There's not a lot of things that fall through the cracks. With me in general, I'm pretty anally attentive to detail. And I like to argue. So probably a trial attorney would be good.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's principle behind the argument, then I don't shy away from I don't look at it as confrontation. It's just right and wrong, and I'll call it for what it is.
Yeah, makes sense.
I'm not going to be like a defense attorney defending somebody that killed somebody. I can't do that. But yeah, I would enjoy that. I'd have to like school a lot more to do it. But yeah.
Okay, what's one word your athletes or colleagues, friends would use to describe you?
I actually I had asked around in advance on that one because I don't like to do that stuff with myself, and it's pretty resounding. Principled.
Principle.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Do people say why?
I'm by the book. Call it like I see it.
Yep.
If you ask me if you look fat in that dress, like I'm gonna tell you.
Yeah.
I still love you.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty direct and factual communicator, and to the point. And principle's a very big thing for me. You have your words, and then your actions back those words. Words alone are nothing, but your actions are everything. And
yeah.
So that was pretty resounding.
It's a
across the people that know me
good
best.
trait for being a lawyer too.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
All right. Well, I like to ask this last question to all my guests. I ask it every time. You've seen so many people chase this industry. Some make it, some don't. What separates the people that succeed from the ones who fade out or give up? And what advice would you give to young people trying to break in or become an entrepreneur or start that business or be the best trainer they can be?
Yeah, I think break that up into a couple parts.
Yeah.
What the success is, or what makes somebody succeed versus kind of drop out. I think it's just a level of passion.
Yeah.
If you get into it because you were an athlete and that's what you think you want to do, like you're going to find yourself out of it in a couple of years. If that was the reason, or some guys, that's what keeps them in it.
Yeah.
But for the most part, like it's a grind. It's not an industry that, you go to school to be an attorney, for example, you're going to come out making X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
You don't do that in the world of training sports. I mean, even working on the best athletes in the game, it's not like just because that guy makes $20 million a year that you get $1 million.
Yeah.
So, it's you gotta have a passion for it and a deeper reason for yourself as to why you do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then word of advice would be, I think mentality's been a big thing for me, the mindset and the approach to it. Willingness to learn, willingness to fail, accepting the failures, almost welcoming them a little bit, right?
Yeah.
But I came across a while ago this concept of the gap and the gain mentality. And you can have goals. You should have goals and things that you aspire to do. But this Thomas Jefferson quote, right? Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Well, the pursuit of happiness implies you don't have it, right? You're pursuing it.
Yeah.
And if we know anything about goals, we talked about the guys like Kobe or whatever. It's, I want to be here. Okay. Well, the second that I get there, this just went here.
Yep.
And so if you are taking where you are at today and measuring it compared to where you want to be, you're always going to be in this gap. Because even when you get there, it changes,
yep.
Right? And so you're in this gap mentality of like, here I am today, here's where I want to be. Like, shit, I'm not there. Okay. A gain mentality is more of still have those goals and aspirations and your routes to get there. But the gain mentality is taking where I am today and where was I?
Yeah.
And so, zero limits when you ride the ebbs and the flows that even, 6 months ago in a low point, I had the thought like, well, 6 years ago, this didn't exist.
Yeah. Yeah.
6 years ago, hundreds of athletes never knew me.
Yeah. Never
knew our team. We're getting instruction, God knows where, didn't have the, the drive to, maybe it was, I was not even considering high school baseball. And then it went from considering high school baseball to now they want to play in college. And so like that's the gain mentality. That is sitting there saying, I don't care where I'm at today or how good or bad today is, where was I? And am I better today than where I was? And if that answer's yes, if the answer is no, you reevaluate some stuff. But that answer is most commonly a resounding yes.
Yeah.
That would be in anything business-wise, entrepreneurship especially, is taking that approach because I'm always going to want more for myself. I'm always going to have that imposter syndrome. Like, you're going to get figured out tomorrow. Like, everything you do, you're fraud. It's you're always going to have those things because, again, that's how our brain's wired to be. But if you can just put a little bit of a twist on that and then start measuring yourself from where you were yesterday to where you are today, because today's all you have.
Yeah.
I don't have tomorrow.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And then, at the end of it, all the adversity you face, whether it's critics or people who don't understand what you do, or might sound a little selfish, but the only person you have to answer to is yourself at the end of the day. When I put my head on the pillow at night, I'm answering to me.
Yep.
Not anybody else.
Yep.
And where I was yesterday, where I am today, where I'm going tomorrow, if I hopefully get it, that would be probably, if you can adopt a mentality in your own way, similar to something like that, that's worked out well for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Love that answer. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all I got for you. And where can our audience, our people find ZL Performance? Where can they find you? Where can they book a session?
Yeah, so ZL_performance, pretty much on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, as our social media platforms. I'm only on Instagram, posture.guy, and then or zlpathletes.com. But that's how to get us, and you're gonna get me. So.
They know that by now.
That's it.
But yeah, thank you so much. I really enjoyed this.
Yeah.
And that's it for this episode, guys. Make sure to check out Sports Business Unplugged on TikTok, Instagram, everything, YouTube. Watch our shorts, and yeah, check out my LinkedIn, Andrew Sachs. And thank you guys so much for tuning in, and looking forward to the next episode. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew.